Hey friends, welcome back to Colourful Indian, and I hope that you're having a wonderful Thursday. So today I'm going to be doing my usual therapy Thursday, and I'm going to be featuring some shades from Copacetic Cosmetics. They just arrived in the mail and I'm really excited to try them out. So these are the shades from last month and they have just arrived, and they're five beautiful shades. So every month Copacetic has this $2 sale where you can pick up 5 shades for $2 each, so $10 total, and you get to try 5 new shades. So I'm really a fan of this because I feel like it helps to expand your single eyeshadow collection, and you can just pick and choose what you want. You don't have to buy all. I've been buying all almost every month. I missed this month actually because I wasn't well on the day, but I was really happy about last month and the month before that because I did get some really beautiful shades, and I'm really excited to play with these ones because they're very autumny and I feel that would be perfect for the season. So we're going to be doing that, and the topic today that we're going to be talking about is where we come from, the things that influence us and how we grow up, and how we come to form some of our ideas and opinions about life and even ourselves. So it's a very personal topic. So if you're interested in all of that, then I would say subscribe, because I do these therapy Thursdays every 2 weeks. I tend to get sick sometimes, and that's when I can't do them, but in general, yeah, I do have a video coming out every 2 weeks for this. So before we begin, my name is Ranita. I like to do makeup tutorials, reviews, swatches, and a whole lot of other things on this channel. Of course, today we're doing mental health, but if you're interested in all of these things, then I would say please subscribe and remember to turn the notification button on so that you know when my new videos are coming out. So without further ado, I'm going to get right into the topic, and we're going to start by just creating a look with all of these beautiful shades from Copacetic. So I'll see you there. This therapy Thursday, we're looking at the way that some of our earliest experiences have a profound and lasting effect on the way that we actually may see ourselves and the way that we see other people, the way that we view a lot of situations in our lives. So I thought that the simplest way to actually start this topic off would be to maybe go into Bowlby's attachment styles. John Bowlby basically believed that our primary caregivers, and I would like to extend it to even like just primary relationships in general, the people who have been around in the beginning. I feel like those people are the ones who really establish a lot of what we think is normal. Basically, John Bowlby said that, these initial relationships, they have a lot of influence in the way that we go about our future relationships, and that is the social ones, the romantic ones, the way basically all relationships that we have in our lives, they can be kind of influenced a lot by the primary ones that we have. So it's actually pretty interesting to get into and to learn about, because it can help you understand why you might be accepting certain things in your life or not accepting certain things in your life, why you may be pushing certain things away, or chasing certain things that may not be healthy for you. And of course, if you're someone who's watching this and you've actually reached a place where you're really happy and you have really lovely, healthy relationships, I'm so happy for you, obviously. John Bowlby basically said that the early relationships, that you have, and these initial bonds, they basically set the basic idea for you, because that's basically how you will go about building and interpreting relationships when you are an adult. His work started in the 1950s, and he started going into, what we know as the attachment theories. So, it evolved, and, now we know that there's like 4 different attachment styles that all people have. And I just want to state over here that this is just for informational purposes, and these attachment styles can absolutely change. Like, definitely they can change if you're planning to work on yourself, if you want to start accepting different kinds of things into your life. Yeah, definitely you can change anything about you. That's something that's within your realm of control. The primary caregiver and the way that the primary caregiver actually acts towards the children actually forms the base, essentially. Like, this is where you start from, this is what you know is your normal, this is what feels comfortable for you, this is basically familiar, and everything that you understand as yeah, I kind of know this already because this is what I've had, and I'm going out from this base into the world to form other relationships. As children, we are definitely dependent on our primary caregivers, and if we're able to get the comfort, soothing, and support from them that we actually require, then we're able to form very secure attachments with them. And we also pick up on a lot of other things as we grow up, because we learn through vicarious learning. Vicarious learning is essentially when you're watching what someone does, and whether you realize it or not, you're actually learning how to deal with the situation. You're learning that, okay, I'm watching this person who's my role model deal with the situation in this particular way, so I'm going to go and I'm going to do that. And usually, like when you're younger, you're not going to be thinking about, oh, is this the right way to do it, blah blah blah, because our brains are not fully developed, and it takes a long time for us to actually emotionally mature. It was actually something I had posted on Instagram, if you guys had seen that. There was something about how they had found out that it's actually closer to 30s when people become actual adults. And I 100% agree with this, because honestly, when you become 20 or 21, you barely know anything. You're not emotionally mature at that time, in the same way that you are in your 30s and when you're coming into that stage, because here you're just a different kind of person. A lot has already changed about you. Sadly, of course, not everybody matures in this way. You may actually find some people who are exactly as mature as they were in their 20s, and that is not necessarily a good thing unless they were already mature back then, but there should be some form of growth happening. So basically, when you're a child, if you have your physical as well as your emotional needs met, you end up having a secure attachment, and you go out into the world and you end up forming more secure attachments, because that for you was your normal. Anyway, that was the theory, and I don't always believe in all of these theories like 100%, but I do see things here and there that I really can relate to, and I feel like, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So I really felt like this kind of did make a lot of sense when I was examining my own life and trying to understand so many different things that were happening in it. So on the other hand, if you are not having your physical and emotional needs met, then basically what happens is you end up having an insecure attachment, and this may not be the fault of the caregiver. Sometimes parents are just, they may be new to parenting, they may not actually know how certain things are affecting their child or whatever. So this obviously is not like this is not a video about blaming people. It's just letting you know that the way you behave with your child, especially in the beginning, it does have an effect on the way that they see themselves, the world, and everybody else around them. So basically there are 4 types of attachment styles. So we have the anxious, which is also the preoccupied. You have the avoidant, which is also known as dismissive, and then you have disorganized, which is known as the fearful avoidant, and last but not least we have the secure attachment style. So the anxious preoccupied style is the first one. So this is essentially when someone doesn't really think well of themselves, but they actually view others in a very positive way, and because of this they're very dependent on the partner or the other people in their lives, because they constantly feel like they need assurance, they need to have that person with them all the time. They basically don't consider themselves to have as much value as the other people in their lives, and basically when you are strongly desiring this type of security, and you're trying to get security but you haven't been able to get it, you're going to be seeking for that in a lot of different things, like in your relationships, in the way that your partner responds to you. All of those things are going to affect you in a very, very strong way. Usually people who have the anxious and preoccupied style, they have a fear of abandonment, because they just don't feel like the person has been around for them in that way that they needed, maybe emotionally, and they just need that kind of reassurance from other people because they never had that. So they end up becoming very dependent sometimes on what other people have to say about things. They may even put their own ideas aside just so that they can get that reassurance and whatever it is that they need from other people. Like and I think I may have actually had this type of attachment style, mostly because I felt like throughout my life I was always it was always kind of imprinted on me from multiple different people and multiple different relationships, and that I was just not as worth as much as other people. And I saw this, it wasn't like explicitly being said to me, okay, it's not like someone was sitting there and telling me this, so that's not what happened, but it was the fact that I was observing other things happening, and I would watch the way other people that were my age were sometimes treated. Like for example, I would go back to India a lot, and I would see the way that similar people my age would be treated by the primary adults in those situations, and I realized that these were the ones that were favored and I was not favored. So I was always in that state where I was like, okay, I'm obviously not supposed to, like, I shouldn't be myself. I should try to be more like them because they are the favored ones. And it really affected the way that I ended up seeing myself, because, you know, I was blamed for a lot of things growing up, by people. And, you know, I kind of carried this into my adult life, thinking that I need to always be at fault. I always need to take the blame no matter what. And it doesn't even matter if you're at blame or if you're at fault, because you've already got this so ingrained into your head that you're the one who is to blame, you're the one who's at fault, you always have to apologize, and you are always in the wrong, no matter what happens. And I kind of feel like it was based on a lot of different relationships, the initial relationships that I had in my life. That's why when I told you that, you know, Bowlby kind of goes with the primary caregivers and stuff, I kind of feel like it's not just the primary caregivers, it's a lot of the initial relationships that you actually grow up having in your life, because you're watching everything happen. And if you're seeing adults treat you differently, and watching, you know, people of a similar age being treated in a very different manner from you, you're going to start feeling like something's wrong with you. You're going to start wondering, you know, how can I get that, essentially. So that's basically my personal experience with that. And of course, now that I've recognized this, I'm obviously, like, you know, not being affected by this kind of stuff as much, because I realized that there's that this kind of stuff just isn't true. You know, like, it's not like I need to be at blame all the time, or you know, the wrong person all the time, take accountability for everyone's mistakes. You know, like, I just need to take accountability for my own. But it's taken a lot of time to actually reach that stage and realize all of these things. And unfortunately, when you come from that kind of base, you end up finding other people just like that, because that is what is familiar. So unfortunately, that is exactly what happened. And it is only in the recent, you know, year or so, like especially from 2019 onwards, that so many of these things have really been changing. I've been realizing, you know, I don't really want to spend the rest of my life always being so worried and concerned and preoccupied with what everybody else has to say. And a lot of that obviously has to do with my faith as well, because I feel like understanding what God has to say about things is a lot more important than what people have to say about things. And the way he sees me and the way people see me, two very different things. I didn't have this understanding for a very, very long, you know, time in my life. So I'm able to talk about these things and I'm not really affected by them as much anymore. Even though, yeah, sometimes it'll come up every now and then. But again, it's just, you know, something to move away from and not let yourself get burdened by it, because I know that I'm just not that person anymore. Like, you move from being someone who is always listening to what everybody else has to say. You move from that to, you know, kind of establishing who you are. And honestly, as you do this, you're gonna burn a lot of bridges, because a lot of people, especially when they are used to you being like this in relationships, or when they're just used to you being a people pleaser because you've never realized or never been taught to really think for yourself or speak up for yourself or stand up for yourself, a lot of people are not going to like it when you actually do this. And they're just going to blame you some more. So it's going to feel bad initially, but losing those relationships is actually a really good thing, because it makes room for really, really healthy people coming into your life. At least that's what my experience has been, and I have no regrets in that area. So let's move on to the next one. This is avoidant and dismissive. So this is the exact opposite. These are people who have a very positive view of themselves, but a very negative view of other people. So we just moved, like, right from, you know, like people who just don't see themselves well, but they see everybody else as wonderful, to the exact opposite. I'm actually kind of wondering if people like this can end up becoming like narcissists. But basically, they have a very high sense of independence. They are self-sufficient, you know, even emotionally, they're very self-sufficient. When they come across individuals who are like the exact opposite, who actually need all these things, to them, they may end up closing up. You know, for them, it's kind of like they don't want people to depend on them. They don't want to have others depend on them, and they certainly don't want to be seeking approval and support in social bonds. But at the same time, I think that people in avoidant and dismissive attachment styles can actually end up hurting people who actually do want to become close to them. Because, you know, over here you're just avoiding intimacy. You don't want to have anything to do with intimacy. And when someone's coming towards you and going like, I want that emotional intimacy from you, this person's kind of like in the opposite kind of, you know, area where they're just like, no, I don't want intimacy. I don't want that kind of closeness. And they can actually withdraw from this. And something that you will also see with this particular type is basically them hiding, suppressing feelings when they're faced with, you know, specific situations or conflicts. You know, they will just try to withdraw as much as possible to protect themselves, because for them, they just don't want to go into those places. The avoidant attachment style basically is formed when a child has had primary caregivers who have rejected them when they come for, you know, affection and emotional intimacy and all those kind of things. So they basically grow up experiencing emotional distance, you know, from their caregivers, and basically, you know, they are taught to basically not have emotional displays or anything like that. I kind of feel like this really reminds me a bit of Asian culture, especially if you look at specific older generations who are literally unable to have any empathy when you go to them for any situation whatsoever. They just want to solve it really quickly and just move on. They don't want to deal with any of the emotions that you're talking about. They don't even want to hear about it. It's just like, yeah, if you have an emotion, you're a negative person. You're, you know, you may get labels, you may get shamed for this. So it's like they literally do not know how to support, you know, other people who have, you know, that emotional intimacy, and they want to share that emotional intimacy with the person who's dismissive and avoidant. It's going to be very, very tough over there. So, you know, you will feel like this person struggles with empathy or may not even have empathy. You may feel like they're just unavailable to you emotionally, actually. So you may have come across people like that, and this is basically what these individuals have gone through. They themselves have experienced, you know, people making them feel like they were not supposed to have emotions and they were not supposed to have empathy. They were just supposed to figure everything out and move forward. And it's honestly a very difficult kind of relationship to have with someone, because you honestly cannot have emotional intimacy when someone is being avoidant or dismissive of your emotions and feelings. The next attachment style that we have is the disorganized and the fearful avoidance. They're basically in between the first two attachment styles that we talked about, which is the anxious one, and then we have the avoidant. So they're kind of like in between anxious and avoidant, and it's very, very confusing, because when they get into relationships, you can be very confused by people like this, because, you know, they'll show you very confusing behaviors in the relationship. Like they kind of want intimacy and closeness in this attachment style, and at the same time they're very fearful of it, and they also don't really trust it. But here, these are individuals who are very afraid of getting hurt, so they may not even be in touch with themselves emotionally. They may not know how to identify emotions. They may struggle with emotions, and at the end of the day, they will be hiding a lot because they just don't want to get themselves hurt. So usually this is the kind of attachment style that you're going to see in people who have experienced trauma in their past. They just struggle with, you know, trusting people, because it's basically the fearful avoidant, right? So you're obviously, the word fear is that they're afraid of something. So basically this is what, like, according to Bowlby's theory, this occurs within like the first 18 months of life. So, you know, this is when maybe your primary caregiver has been very bizarre, or has been it's been chaotic, and the baby can sense all of this. The caregiver could have been behaving very aggressively, and because of this, the child would have been perceiving this as scary. And the reason it's confusing is because you may have a caregiver who's actually giving you some love and some support, like sometimes, and at other times they may not be meeting your needs at all. So it becomes very confusing for the child, and that's basically how they end up developing the fearful avoidant attachment style. So this again is not intentional, like the way that the caregiver goes about things. It's not an intentional thing. It could be just that, you know, this is how they themselves were parented, and then they take that and they do the same thing. And basically they may not even feel confident about the way that they're raising their child. So to put it simply, you may have a parent who, you know, may laugh at something that a child is doing at first, and then at a later time they may punish them for that same behavior. So it becomes very confusing for the child, because they're like, hey, I did this the first time and I was, you know, there was no punishment. Now I did this the second time and there is a punishment. So it becomes very confusing for them to figure out what exactly it is that, you know, is going to be rewarded and punished. So because of this, the child may actually struggle to develop a bond with the parent because it's so erratic, it's unpredictable, you can't rely on it, and essentially they don't know what to expect from you, and that becomes a source of anxiety for them. That's why it becomes fearful, because they don't know what to expect from their caregiver, and they can end up confused about it, conflicted about how they're supposed to behave, and it's basically just not having their needs met. A child that has a fearful avoidant attachment style, you'll see them behaving in ways like, just being very conflicted around their caregiver, not knowing if they can go to them for comfort or not. They basically do want comfort and love from the caregiver, but they also fear the caregiver. So that's why it's so confusing for them, because like I explained previously, their behaviors are getting different responses at different times. So they're never sure, like, is this actually going to get this, or is it going to get that? So they're very confused. They have difficulties with self-soothing, or allowing themselves to be vulnerable around other people. They may actually share a lot of information with other people, so a lack of boundaries. That's something that you will see with individuals like this, and they just have insecurities because they don't know how to maintain a meaningful interaction. As adults, individuals that have this particular attachment style are going to find it very hard to emotionally regulate, mostly because they haven't learned this. They don't know how to emotionally regulate. So if they're getting triggered by something, they may not even understand the emotions that they're feeling or that they're going through. They may not know how to identify it, and they may respond by just having an emotional outburst. That is perfectly normal. They may see intimacy and relationships as threatening because that is essentially what they grew up with. They saw that sense of confusion. They may have trouble opening up to loved ones. They may not have emotions most of the time. They may be very unpredictable when faced with emotional situations. And they just may not be able to have closeness with other people because even though they want to have that closeness, they don't know how. So with this particular type, what's interesting is that because I told you they're in the middle of like avoidant and the anxious type, so you may see them leaning more to like one or the other, and it can be a bit confusing, and it's also damaging for relationships because you may have someone who's kind of just avoiding emotions and just not being there emotionally at all, and versus the other one, you'll be seeing someone who's extremely clingy, and both of these kind of things are very damaging when it comes to healthy relationships. Last but not least, we have the secure attachment type. The secure attachment is basically where you have someone who has grown up, with that emotional intimacy, their physical needs being met, and they're able to go ahead and make other relationships like this. So in relationships, you'll see them, just having honesty, intimacy, closeness, and they're able to do all of these things. They have a good view of themselves, a good view of other people, and they're able to just navigate through a lot of these things in a very good way as well, because they know how to emotionally regulate. If they're faced with a tough situation, they're able to emotionally regulate and look after themselves, but they can even do it for their partners and other people in their lives. So they're not as affected, and they don't take it in the same way that the other attachment types would take this in. So obviously this is where all of us should aspire to come to, especially if we've not had this growing up. And it does take work, but it is definitely possible. Over here, with the secure attachment types, they're not looking for validation and approval from other people because they're secure in themselves. This particular attachment type is where you're going to see someone being very emotionally intimate. They can do that, and at the same time they can also just manage well on their own. They're not clingy, and they're not like avoidant either, so it's neither of the others. Like all the other three that you heard about, this is not evident here. So in order to have a secure attachment, usually as a child you would have had several things that are required in order to promote this secure attachment in your children. So one is basically the warm, nurturing, and attentive manner in which you attend to your children, and then being very attuned. So when your child actually needs something emotionally, physically, you're there to give it to them. You're there to pay attention, and basically what you're teaching your child is that they matter when you do these things. And you also protect your child while giving them the freedom to explore, and you are basically giving them some boundaries, but at the same time being there to guide them and allow them to have that independence, because as you grow up, you want to kind of allow your child to feel trusted, because, you know, they are being guided by you. And basically, you know, just having a reliable caregiver, someone who's there, someone who's basically just, you know, helping your child appreciate all the things about them that make them unique. That's also really important, because as a child, you will sense this is someone who genuinely sees me as special and who appreciates me, versus someone who's just not bothered at all. So yeah, these are basically the 4 attachment types. I definitely want to talk more about this as we go into, you know, other videos and everything, but I thought it would be good to actually just go through the 4 and give you a brief overview of this, because it does affect the way that we see our lives as adults. Because if you're coming from a secure attachment, you're going to go and you're going to find other people that are familiar to you, and what's familiar is a secure attachment type, right? So you're going to find other people who promote that same sense of security in your life. You will be very attracted to individuals like that. And if you're coming from any of those other types, you will also go and find what's familiar to you. And that's how, you know, that's kind of one of the ways you can kind of see people who come from abusive homes. They sometimes can end up finding other people who are just as abusive, because that is familiar to them. That is what they think is normal and comfortable, and, you know, for them it's kind of like, yeah, this is what I grew up with, and they may not realize it, but that's actually one of the reasons why they're attracted to it. And similarly, like for me, if I'm talking about myself, I would say, yeah, a lot of the people I actually felt familiar or close to or brought into my life were actually people who always confirmed to me that the way I thought and felt really didn't matter. And you know, it was always about supporting them. And, you know, when I look back on it and I reflect, I realize that, yeah, you know, this is the reason why I was so attracted to them, because I grew up and I really never, I don't remember anybody really making me feel like, you know, my opinions were important or my feelings were important. It was the kind of culture where you don't really talk about your emotions at all. And it kind of sucks, because, you know, the truth is that after I married my husband, things changed a lot, because I started realizing, and I think I've healed a lot. The thing I want to leave everyone with, regardless of your attachment type, is that you can work on it and it can be changed. If you notice certain things about yourself, choosing unhealthy people or patterns, people that hurt you, people that don't value you, and, you know, just constantly being in a place where you're like, why is it that I'm giving so much in these relationships and these individuals don't value me that much? It would be kind of good to go and actually start exploring more about your family, because I really do believe that a lot of the initial relationships in our lives actually form so many of the choices that we make. Like, I know for a fact that I went and I sought out people and individuals who would make me feel like the exact same way that I felt in my childhood. And now I've realized that, and I've actually started changing that. And it is life-changing when you actually realize that, because you suddenly realize you don't actually need to do this anymore, you know. You suddenly realize, hey, I have a choice. I don't actually need to keep treating myself this way. I don't need to keep choosing people who treat me this way. And sometimes that just means letting go of people. It doesn't mean that you hate them or anything like that, but it does mean that you're actively searching now for things that are going to bring goodness into your life. And that's actually a very, very good thing. So that's all I have to share today on Therapy Thursday. It's a very brief talk about attachment styles, but I think that what I'd like to do is probably go deeper into all of this as we have more Therapy Thursdays. But let me know what you think about this as well, and if you're familiar with attachment types in the comments below. Hello everyone, this is the finished look, and basically my feedback on the shades is that they're the same drier consistency that Copacetic always has. So if you want to see more of my Copacetic videos, I'd highly recommend going and checking out like all the videos that I've done on the Copacetic brand. There is a playlist they're all in the indie makeup playlist, so you can kind of go and search for them and you can find them. But basically Copacetic generally has like a drier formula, so you know, the way that they work on your eyes, it doesn't show up the same way I feel that other shades from other brands show up. It's very unique, and you do get shine, because you can see how this is wearing. I feel like it's worked pretty well, you know, like the shades are very pretty, and yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with the way that they're working. If you're looking for super high shine shades, I don't think that this is necessarily, you know, that kind of eyeshadow, but I do think that these would make for very nice everyday kind of shades if that's what you're going for. And I did use one of those shades as my blusher over here, and I felt like that worked really well because I wanted to actually try using all 5. I ended up not using one of them. I'll probably feature it like in another video, but yeah, I used Pumpkin Harvest Shandy for my cheeks, and you can see what that looks like because it's kind of like a very nice pretty orange. It's like that. It really looks pretty. It's a very nice color. But honestly, this bundle is a really lovely bundle. Perfect for starting off your fall season. And I was very keen to try these out because I wanted to share, you know, my thoughts on them. I do like Copacetic's formula. This is the other shade that I didn't try, by the way. It's kind of like a brown that shifts into a teal. It kind of reminds me of the changing colors of the leaves. So they do have, you know, some really beautiful color combinations. And then these are the other 3 colors that I actually put on my eyes. You can see what those look like as well. They're just very pretty. They're beautiful shades, and honestly, if you tried this brand out, I think you'd be really happy and very satisfied. Just make sure that you wear a primer so you can see how those 3 shades that I showed you on my fingers ended up kind of blending together. You know, the shades have been sitting on my eyes for some time now, and I kind of feel like they're just doing wonderfully. I haven't had to touch up or anything like that. I would highly recommend using a primer with them. So the rest of the makeup details, I went in with one of my Maven Beauty eyeliners. I don't think these aren't necessarily going to be available for a long time because I know that they're being phased out right now, but I do like them. I like the colors, and I went in with the shade Sangria. Where the hell is it? Okay, here. Yeah, this is Sangria. It's kind of like a very deep red kind of wine shade, and it shows up like this on my skin tone. I can kind of understand why they're phasing it out. It's not really the most reliable eyeliner, like especially when you're trying to run out the door. Sometimes it just won't work the way that you want it to work, and then you'll be panicking. So I kind of understand. The gemstones that you can see on my eye, all of these are from Temu, so you can go and pick them up. You can get them from Shein. There's so many options to go and get these things. And then my mouth, I went in with Ulac Cosmetics with the shade Trophy Boy because it was very orange and gold, and I kind of felt like the whole look was very, you know, fall, like burgundy orange, and then yeah, it was just perfect for that. So I thought that yeah, this is the color to go in with. And it's a lovely lip gloss. It's a gorgeous lip gloss, and it's very comfortable. It has color, like it's not super sparkly. It's not super sparkly, but it does give you a color, and you can see what that's looking like. So you do have to touch up every now and then, but I just love the formula of these, and I highly recommend them. I love Ulac. If you use my code, you get free shipping. There's no more discount anymore, and I'm very sorry about that. I think Ulac has just changed. I think a lot of things are changing, right, with the way the economy is going. But I think that's about it. You know, I went in with my usual products, Woosh Beauty, Yensa. I love all of those. Those are my staples, and that's why I feature them all the time. So today, that's all I have for you in the video. I hope that you had fun kind of learning about the attachment styles, digging a little bit into, you know, how our upbringing really does affect us as adults. And of course, this is not permanent, but I thought that, you know, it would be nice to kind of get more and more into this like over time. So this is basically just the very first video of kind of just dipping our toes in, and you know, there's a lot more to uncover. So thank you for joining me for today's Therapy Thursday, and you know, if you want to see other Therapy Thursday topics, be sure to go check out that playlist, and you know, I will see you very soon for another video. Lots of love to you. If you have any thoughts and feedback, you know, that you want to give me, feel free to drop it in the comments below, or you could drop me an email or a DM on Instagram. Any of those things work, but I'm very grateful that you're here, that you're listening, and you know, I will see you soon for another video. Lots of love. Have a wonderful week. Bye.